running a game in an hour, but I have nothing planned.
I'm running a game in an hour and I only have 5 maps, 6 NPCs, and 12 side quests planned. Hey! I'm your host, Sarah, and
I'm your other host, Morgan.
We're two sisters
by marriage
who love to talk about stories.
From writing fiction and creating elaborate plot lines in D&D
to doing the bare minimum or the absolute most in prep.
We're out of initiative. What should we be prepping then, right? I think that's the big question that we teased at the beginning of this. I'll say encounter maps, right? Mm-hmm. I will put this one in both write and wing, and we can get into that when we talk about winging it. But what I write, what I make sure I have prepped, an encounter map, the key beats for the upcoming session or sessions. Like, don't force anybody to go through anything in a certain amount of time. You just give yourself some room. Custom magic items, don't make them on the spot. Don't make custom magic items on the spot. Hey, this is the little voice in the back of your mind. Don't make custom magic items on the spot. It bites me in the butt every single time. Any important NPCs and the info they're willing to share, and generators. And then I actually have a DM screen here because I think that playing digital, I think we forget about this resource that most people are using. And this is I'm looking at the DM screen. Yeah,
it's a Stroud one. Yeah, it's a Stroud one.
This is Ghost of Saltmarsh, and it has random tables for ships that you might encounter, random tables for hazards you might encounter, and it also has a lot of simple rules. So random tables and some of the rules that you might need reinforced. Having those at your fingertips, critically useful.
This one has a lot of Barovian names, just a list of names from Barovia, and the Barovian calendar, if you
That's
are curious.
Nice, yeah.
And then it had the normal stuff, like the conditions, but then it also has I know. It also had daytime encounters for Barovia and nighttime encounters for Barovia. It's amazing. It's amazing. So
it's a great resource that when you're playing digitally, I don't we often forget that exists.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So what are you prepping every single time? What are you not leaving up to chance?
I always maps. And I don't... I have gone back and forth. I've used some Incarnate, and then a lot I've just pulled from either Patreons or free open source stuff on Reddit. I always have probably 3 to 4 encounter maps at the ready, either that are specifically to quests or just kind of general forest encounter, random encounter stuff. So I always have those, and I do a lot of for what I think they're gonna go next, the party's gonna go next, who they're gonna meet. This new encounter, we're on our way to the Wizard of the Wines, is pretty intense, and it is lots of YouTube videos about DMs talking about it's one of the hardest encounters to run, for various reasons. One, there is a lot of monsters that you have to run horde style, and a lot of DMs are not prepared for that. Second, there is a lot of NPCs that have to tell a lot of information that don't want to tell a lot of information. And and if you're familiar with the Wizard of the Wines, it's set at a vineyard, and this is the family's main source of income and everything, and so they really don't want you to light it on fire as much as you want to light it on fire. So anyways, it's hard. So if your party happens to do that, what happens? And that kind of thing. It is one of the hardest encounters. So I've spent probably 3 or 4 hours just getting notes compiled for this. I don't anticipate further ones to be quite this hard, but I have maps ready. And And then notes like NPCs, like you said, NPCs, like these are the 3 things they have to say. And then I do have like magic items, just a list. And that is something that, so I have like the map and I have the NPCs and what's supposed to happen, the goal. But then I have learned to not put specifically where the magic items are on the map because I can guarantee none of you will look there. So they will be located where you are looking, or not
That's
able
a
to
very
find.
important tip.
Yeah, because, and I just have a list and I'll be like, oh, this is a good one to have here. Like this would be relevant to have in this place. What, armor, even not necessarily magic items, just items. I just have a list and, oh, you're going to spend some time looking in there. Oh yeah, here you go. Like here's some boots or something. And I just kind of have a list of that, of Barovia setting, like what you would find there. One of our players most recently complained about not having any type of alcohol besides wine, and that is canon. That is true. There is only 3 types of wine, now down to 2 types of wine. That's it. Like that's all Barovians get. Anything that's liquor is smuggled in somehow. It's not it's not
and
the
he
best.
got a flask in the same episode, in the same session.
Wasn't it off a fellow party member?
It was off of the corpse of a fallen companion, which is very Strahd.
Yeah, it's very Strahd. It was brilliant. He deserved it. It was great. So yeah, I do the magic items or items. I just have a running tally list. Do you use like Google Docs or do you use Roll20? How do you keep organized?
Yeah, I use Google Docs for everything because it's convenient. I can do it on my phone. I often find that I'll have an idea for a session or an idea for a plot hook, not while I'm sitting at my desk. So I'll throw that into Google Docs, and I tend to do like session plan for the 10-24 session, and I'll start the doc, and then the group almost never gets through everything that I have prepped, whether it's extensive or like just a handful of story beats. It'll be that one doc for several weeks in a row, and then I'll keep taking notes, and then I'll start a new doc. It's very chaotic, and would be basically impossible to assemble anything into anything useful. But for our purposes, which are just home games, not actual plays that are streamed anywhere, I think it works great. Works for me. So with Strahd, are you prepping? Well, 2 questions. Are you prepping at that same ratio? I want to know how many hours you're spending prepping for 1 hour gameplay, and where are you keeping your notes?
So I will say, I said Wizard of the Wines. I've probably 6-7 hours into prepping this, and I'm not quite done because because of various things. Again, we discussed that this is a very hard encounter, and there are techniques to make it easier for both the DM and the players. Not just easier, but more fun. So I am spending a little bit more time on that. A lot kind of hinges on this encounter, and so I kind of want it to be peak, but I know after this there's another encounter that I already have a map and it's done. Like it's done. Like I don't have to do anything with it. So I think averaging, I would say it's an hour to an hour of prep to hour of gameplay. I enjoy it, like you said you enjoy it. So it's fun to me. It's kind of relaxing. I can do it after work or making maps. I love making maps. I love Incarnate. Just playing around, or we've discussed Dungeon Alchemist is really fun. New features all the time. And I have kind of just messed around with it. Speaking of which, Dungeon Alchemist has a lot of community submitted maps now.
I'm so excited for the direction they're going.
Yeah, and so you can go in and look and see all these maps community people have, and it's just wild, and they're so amazing. And they're getting some Curse of Strahd ones in there, so I'm liking that.
That's amazing.
So as far as my notes, I have a Google Doc, but it is like this block for this encounter, and then this, and then this. I mean, it's maybe 2 pages, and it's all of Strahd. Like, it's all I have, the overarching plan. And then on roll 20, I do the handouts, but I don't show them to you guys. And I will do like intro, and then this happens, and then like, and I'll have each one will be specific. So like with the Abbey, it'll be like intro Abbott, and then like what he says, and just kind of give an intro to everything. And then further down, as you guys explored his house or the Abbey, what you would find and where. They're pretty in depth, and I don't use most of it, but I just have it there. So, like, if I need to refer to it, it's there.
Yeah. How do you feel about scripted dialogue? Do you feel like that is typically useful, or do you feel like sometimes it misses? I
I
find that I can't anymore script
Yeah,
dialogue.
yeah, and Curse of Strahd has quite a bit of
Yeah.
scripted dialogue, and some of the words, it's like I wouldn't say that, and it's not
Right.
natural. There are times that I read and like, this is really corny, and this is really
Well,
campy,
Strahd
and
has some pretty problematic
it
language
also,
too, and
yes,
that
yes,
requires a little bit editing by
it
the
does.
DM if it makes you more comfortable.
Yeah, yeah, and I I have, as far as scripted dialogue goes, I haven't. But when you went to Kretzka and you talked to the Burgomaster, there was some of his there. But as far as the abbot was, that was all me. That was all, because I wanted him to be different,
Mhm.
um, and have different motivation. And in Curse of Strahd, he doesn't have very clear motivation. He's a deva. He's a fallen angel. He worships the Morning Lord, and he's just taken over this abbey for his creations. And I wanted to give him more um, drive and purpose, potentially making him a connection with the party if they ever want to message or refer back to information. I kind of wanted him to be more a willing participant in them escaping. Um, just because I liked him and I liked who he was, and I think he's super creepy and it's amazing. Um, so I feel like in Barovia, you don't, a lot of the NPCs are just so hostile and
Mhm.
so against outsiders. I wanted them to have some sort of contact with an NPC that, I'm not saying he's good, but is someone they could contact that has a lot of knowledge, has been there a long time, just for a point of resource. Um, but yeah, the scripted dialogues, it's tough. I like that it's there because then you know a little bit more of their mannerisms or what they would reveal or what they wouldn't. And I think it's a great guide, but me personally, I rarely read it verbatim. I always modify it to make it fit me or to fit our story a little bit better. I do, however, really like the descriptions of the
Yes.
settings. Oh my
Yeah, yeah,
gosh,
yeah.
those save
That's the
me every
best.
time. The crackling twigs or the falling leaves or the cold chill wind in the air. Like, I love reading those or describing
Yeah.
rooms. Those
Yeah.
save me all the time. 10-foot high ceilings held aloft by cement pillars, and like, I'll read those just because and as a writer, I'm terrible at that too. Like, I hate writing
Those
descriptions
are
of
hard to come up with
rooms.
in the moment.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
that was, like, my biggest takeaway from modules is I'll write my, like, story beats, and then often, if you guys are going to a new area, what does it smell like? What does it look like? What do we hear? What's the
Mhm,
air temperature like? Like,
mhm.
what does it feel like? And do those little blocks that they have in the modules, that little popped out, bit that you're supposed to read, oh, big stretch. Um, I like to draft that for myself, and that was one of my biggest takeaways from the module was like, you should include a setting description because otherwise I'll forget it. I have to put that in like big notes. I tape it everywhere. Like, what does it look like? What's going on? Do they smell bad? Like, what's the deal?
Yeah. How far in advance do you typically prep? You said you had some, like, backup maps, that kind of thing. I mean, when we were in the
Yeah.
thick of it with our previous campaign and, like, cooking along and hitting Waterdeep stuff and the Castellaners and Xanathar, like, how far ahead, or do you, I mean.
Yeah, I was planned pretty far out initially, and then I started to get to the point where I started to like not prep at all. I started to just like skim. It got like really exhausting for me to try to keep up with the story when the party is never going to go where you want them to go. They're never going to do what's expected. And even after 3 years of running the same group every week, you guys always surprise me. So for instance, you know, you mentioned the Castle Hunters, which I think is hilarious because that was the initial enemy that I chose for Waterdeep Dragon Heist, which is 4 main enemies to choose from.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And you guys did not. The group did not bite on the story. You didn't bite. You were like, nah, it sounds like a bunch of cultists. I don't want to deal with that. So even as I tried to increase the heat, the party was increasingly ambivalent. And then you guys started to mess with Xanathar and his kind of group, and what are they? And so it was like, oh, I guess I should pivot. We're not in summer, we're actually in spring. So I'll just tweak everything and start prepping, you know, and then you guys didn't really want to pursue that either. So ultimately you guys got to the vault and both groups attacked you because I thought you were over leveled and I thought it would be really funny. So both groups attacked you, one right after the other, and it was not even a challenging fight. And it was like, oh, I need to work way less hard. I need to just scale back. When you guys started to get into the homebrew content, though, some of that stuff I'm prepping a week or two out, but often to have a better idea of like where I want the story arc to go, some of the stuff I've had prepped, like specific encounters that didn't come up but I've saved for later, some of the stuff I've had prepped for 3 years. Like literally 3 years I have had this map ready. It has an NPC, it has a label, I've got a setting description. I can pull it up. I was actually looking at, I have this big overarching document. For a while I was really organized. And it had like region descriptions, regions you guys might go to, some encounter ideas, some plot hooks for each player or each character, like the main places that you guys might go. And then I was linking out to my session over session notes, so I could just flip through and like, here are the bullets for the session, click through to see, you know, the rest of my notes that were there. That worked really well when I had the brain space for it, and then I didn't anymore. But yeah, so sometimes I'm prepping the morning of, sometimes I'm prepping a year and a half out, and it is so unpredictable.
So we discussed what to write: NPCs, battle maps, or encounter maps, that kind of thing. What would you recommend winging?
Recommend, or what do I? Because those are different.
Both.
Winging, anything that I have like on the inside of the DM screen, you can wing any of that. Random encounter. I just need to grab a token that looks close enough. You can typically wing that based on your party's preferences. You're going to find that your group enjoys a specific blend of social encounters, puzzles, and combat. And you should ask the party, and you should check in periodically. We do sometimes, but like people's preferences are going to change. And I find that like some groups are like, I only want social encounters, like just like make it an entire social deal. Some people like, that's boring, I only want combat. So it's kind of like you got to figure out the blend for your group. The other thing, not that I would recommend this, but you did mention Dungeon Alchemist. I have on multiple occasions, the party has drawn something, grabbed something that I did not think wasn't necessarily a plot hook, decided to go in a direction that I wasn't expecting, and I have made the map while running the session in Dungeon Alchemist, and I have also dug up maps from Patreons that I subscribe to because I just like sort of have this mental catalog, because I have one Map Guffin in particular who I love his maps, and I tend to draw on them a lot, and I have sort of a mental catalog of everything he has. He actually recently made a huge Beautiful Mind Excel spreadsheet that's like every map he's ever made and like what types of terrain, and you can sort of sort through it, and I have all of them downloaded, grab it, and then upload it in Roll20. I have on multiple occasions created the map or grabbed the map or customized a map and uploaded it while we were vamping, like while the group was talking, because that is exhilarating. I like that. And I know that that's not for everyone.
Living on the edge. You're giving me anxiety just thinking about that. I panic if I don't have a token. Like, oh, you have this weird wild shape familiar. Okay. I didn't plan for that. Like, I can't. I can't.
You're gonna wild shape into what? Opens Photoshop. Oh, what color? Let me just get this. Yep, there we go.
Nope.
There it is. It's on the map. Yeah, I love that. I love that. But that's one of the things I really enjoy about GMing. I wing NPC names. Sometimes, if they're not important, if they have a specific purpose, then I'll write them down in advance, like I was talking about. Voices and mannerisms, I overthink that so much. But typically just try to wing it. I have like an idea of some of the voices that I can do. There's always some variation of a southern drawl that's very easy to draw on for me. And it doesn't even have to be that. Like I like to do little like scared to still be alive voices, or like that's like the hallmark of most of my NPCs is like lovable and also will tell you what's wrong with the world at the drop of a hat. Like little mannerisms and stuff.
Do you practice like driving in the car voices? I know I'm always bad about that. Yeah, I'm trying all sorts of voices.
Anytime that there's one of these days there's gonna be this like huge security breach and someone's gonna get all the recordings that our friend the Goog has been taking of us, and it's gonna be me singing in weird accents and strange voices and picking different and cycling through different like noises and like reading street signs like west, like what other intonations can I do? And I will be embarrassed, but I think we all will.
Yeah, I do. I'm always practicing like voices in the car. A lot of times my kids are in the back seat and they're so used to it now. They don't even like say anything. They just like are on their tablets and they're like, oh, yep, mom's cracking up again.
When you were practicing for the your icy your Dragon Device Fire Peak, I almost called it by our colloquial term. The Dragon Device Fire Peak character, you said that you had switched to your southern drawl that you were using for that character. How long did you use that drawl before anyone said anything?
Quite a while. I was like, I think I was putting on like my makeup or getting ready for the morning, and I went and got coffee, and I just kept talking to the kids like that, and they didn't even respond. My husband finally said something, but the kids, like I've been practicing an Irish accent for the next one, and I like for months I've been practicing this, and I'll use it in the car. I'll read the street signs, or I'll just like say things, and the kids are just, yeah, okay, mom's weird. So
maybe they think that's normal now, and that's great. Just normalize talking to yourself in more voices. I think that's great. You're moving the next generation in the right direction.
So as far as winging it for me, we discussed like I like to have a list of items at the ready that if I notice the party is going one direction, to investigate or look, or they end up, heaven forbid, kill an NPC, like what the NPC would have on them.
Ooh, I wing that. Yeah.
Yeah, I wing that. I like to leave some room when like they're traveling. I don't like to fill, and we've discussed this before, I don't like to fill every single second or minute they're traveling like, oh, there's someone with a wagon coming to you, or oh, you see deer, or oh, there's a monster, or there's a tree. Like, I don't like to give them all these random encounters while they're traveling. I like to leave that open for them to either RP, or maybe someone wants to go hunting and then, oh, now there's a deer or whatever. I kind of like to leave travel sections kind of more open. I like that for just kind of not necessarily downtime, but I feel that that's a great time for them to either bond as characters or practice something or just spend some time attuning, that kind of thing. I like to leave travel chunks of half a day. I like to leave that open as much as possible. I trying to think what else I like to. It's hard because
maps?
No. I have so many maps. I did read, they were talking about over prepping and what over prepping looks like. And I have found myself that with Strahd, if I look too far ahead, which I have, I have a general sense of where you're going to go and what you're going to see and that kind of thing. But if I prep too far ahead, then I forget what's currently happening. Like, I feel like I'm not in the present as much with the characters that you're going to see now instead of like a month or two from now. And I think that's kind of a slippery slope for over prepping. Is you go too
Yeah.
far in advance, then you're not letting kind of the story grow organically. And I ran into that because it's like, we're not going to reach that for months. Why am I worried about that right now? So I try, if there's some specific connection, I'll maybe like kind of bring it up a little bit. But I'm really trying to be like in the moment, maybe like one session ahead, and then call that good, because then I feel like I'm just better prepared for what's currently happening than what's down the road.
Too far ahead as over prepping. That's interesting because I find that I get too detailed when I'm over prepping. We were talking about this before we started recording when the party went to the Way Inn, which I said should be, I decided should be a bustling trading post. When you all arrived, I wanted there to be this like, well, I had a MapGuffin map that I wanted to put out, and I was like, wouldn't it be so fun if there was like a vendor fair? And I was just looking at my notes. It says, read me. There's a description of the area, a little bit of scripted dialogue, like state your name and business. Oh, we're trying to keep troublemakers out. Right then, keep your weapons sheathed and check your magic at the gate. Like, that's as far as I scripted the dialogue so that they could the guards could like interact with you a little bit more. And then I drafted out, how long is this document? 10 pages of content for this one session. 19 vendor carts in various stages of setup around the courtyard. Food, and then 4 vendors, 5 vendors, consumable supplies, other goods, including pets and flowers and rocks, weapons. There was a fortune teller there who was reading tarot cards. Each person had a name, and they had a very like 2-sentence description. I listed their inventory. Most of it was linked. It's not even like that's taking up what's space in the document. It's like, I did script out the tarot reading because I was thinking about Strahd actually, and I was like, oh, it would be really interesting to do a tarot reading for this character and have him like gain a magic item out of the encounter. There was supposed to be a performance. We didn't even get to that. There was supposed to be a circus performance, and that was supposed to be where the party was going to meet some of the crossover characters from the other campaign. Skipped it entirely.
But I remember I remember this. I remember,
yeah.
And I remember all the vendors having personalities and descriptions, and I mean, it made an impact on me. I remember.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah,
Because there were a couple of vendors you guys didn't interact with. Obviously, there were 19. That's too many. That's way too much. And there were a couple of storylines that didn't get pulled, like plot hooks. Oh, what a clever plot hook. I'll throw this in there. And the party either didn't pick up on it or picked up on something adjacent. And that was how Tuk Tuk ended up with a scorpion as a pet. That like killed a man right before you guys adopted him. You guys got a new, this is from 11/8/2020. That's so funny. I can't believe it's been so long. You guys you met a new NPC who gave you a new like quest because he couldn't find his brother-in-law. And that it does have some scripted dialogue, but this is just like, when I look back at these notes, I have all this stuff prepped, and I can see that it spanned at least 3 or 4 sessions. Now I was just comically over prepared. It was really an unnecessary amount of work. When I could have just had, a couple of key important vendors. I could have had a number of stalls, and then I could have been hitting random on the generator for what you guys actually wanted, instead of like, oh, what about this fanciful? Like, great if I try to write a book with this stuff. Awesome, it's already there. But like, for the purposes of our game, this was me over prepared.
And I feel that winging it in that kind of situation, any sort of like shopping situation, maybe you can have a couple like quirky, fun vendors that just throw it in there. But like, someone really wants pastries, or somebody really wants, a new hood or whatever. Like, it's you cannot prepare in any foreseeable way what your party wants to buy or shop or look for. And so I think in that instance, like, have a couple fun ones, or if like there's a specific connection to a quest they're on, or one of the players like, oh, that's their aunt, like maybe have that. But there's some things you just cannot prepare for, and you just have to learn to live with it as a GM and enjoy the surprises.
Enjoy the surprises they throw at you. That's for sure. That's where that, I think we call it, I mean, improv is probably not even the correct term, but like that's where that improv comes in, right? That
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, that's what you want. Yes, and XYZ and just as powerful. No, but you can. And I have a very hard time saying no in my day-to-day life and a really hard time saying no in the game. And the only reason that hasn't bit me too hard with some of the magic items I've given you guys, because I was using the sane magic items pricing document, which I totally recommend. Don't have to think about it, just look it up. And then like add some to it if they're not friends with a vendor or if they're hostile with a vendor. The thing that will bite you is then they have access to like everything. That's like every magic item, most magic items ever. Well, that's too much. So you need to dial it back. And what does that look like? So that's kind of a little bit of a balancing act. The nice thing though is and no offense, Sarah, but the players will forget they have that magic item. They're gonna forget it. They're gonna forget it immediately. They're never gonna use it. They're gonna attune to it. It's gonna take up a slot, and then the next time they get something new they have to attune to, they're gonna go, "Oh yeah, I forgot I had that."
Yes. Yes,
which has
this
saved
is
me because
correct.
there were a few times. There were a few times where I was like, "Ooh, somebody's got a magic item that could negate this entire." Oh, they forgot. Okay, yeah, we're moving on, moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe in the description of this video, we will put some links of these resources we discussed.
Ooh, yeah, there are a lot of creators who are doing amazing work in lightening your load as far as DM prep goes. This is a topic that I think we could talk about clearly for a very long time. And it is different for everybody. I would love to hear what other folks are doing. What's your average prep time per session? How many hours per 1 hour of gameplay or the other way around? And are there any, what are you writing and what are you winging? Like tell us. We want to know. And it would be really fun to hear some of the thoughts.
Well, we're out of initiative, but we're going to get back into it. So go out there, roll some dice, tell some stories, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Out of Initiative, a podcast from Merely NPCs. For more from Sarah and Morgan, follow them on TikTok at Merely NPCs or visit them online at merelynpcs.com.